Hello everyone, I want to talk about why I believe my Fujifilm here is not a fixed lens. Now, stick with me on this and I'll explain what I mean. So this weekend I'm around the Dove Stone Reservoir here in the Peak District. I've just done an 18k walk yesterday and today we're doing a 9k walk. And a topic I wanted to talk about is my Fujifilm camera. There is a topic within the camera that I don't feel like is talked enough about, and that is the inbuilt teleconverter that you get with the camera. Now I feel like I've watched plenty of reviews and no one seems to really be talking about this feature. So here we are today and I want to talk about it with you guys. Today I want to talk about 3 different ways you could turn your fixed lens camera, such as my Fujifilm X100VI, into a zoom lens or get the same equivalent. So those 3 ways are cropping in post, buying a adapter that Fujifilm sell. They sell 2 adapters. One is a wider aperture and then one is a zoom aperture, and then the 3rd way is of course using the inbuilt teleconverter that you get natively in your Fujifilm camera. So let's go over every different feature that you've got available to you. Firstly, let's talk about if you decided to crop in post. Now I believe in cropping in post might be one of the most popular options because of the versatility that it gives you. You can take the shot and then go into Lightroom or Capture One or whatever it might be and then change the photo after then. However, I really don't believe this should be something that everyone does, and I've got a couple of reasons for that. So the reason why I don't personally like it is I believe cropping should be the sort of finishing touch. For me, you should already have the composition nailed within your photo and within photography, and then you're using cropping just to maybe nip out a few bits here and there, but I wouldn't use it as your basis to get your composition. It's just a personal preference of mine, and again it helps me speed up my workflow, especially when you're going through 500, 1,000 photos. If you think that every time you do that you need to try and remember what you were trying to compose in that photo, it might be a bit of a headache. And of course the other 2 reasons is the fact that you do lose vital image quality. Now the X100VI, as we know, is a 40 megapixel sensor, which is nice, but essentially if you're cropping in 50%, you are losing that image quality. And then for me personally, like I said, I just don't think that you get that composition or that same look that you're getting in camera. And personally, I like to look at the back of the screen and think that I got the picture that I wanted there and then, and not have to go in post to try and find it. So option number 2, and maybe another popular one, is using adapters. Now Fujifilm sell 2 first-party adapters. I'm going to focus on the teleconverter that zooms your camera to a 50mm equivalent, as I feel this might be the more popular option. So, and that would be the TCL X100i, and I think they've got a version 2 out now, which then the camera is able to sense that it's got an adapter on it and it automatically adjusts its settings to follow that. So why don't I personally like using this option? There is a cost to buying the camera adapter. I think they're a couple of £100 if you can get them all on eBay, or about £300 to £400 if you were buying them new, which is a considerable cost. I know a few people in previous videos have said that the Fujifilm X100VI is a great value, and whilst I believe that, I don't believe you should then go out and buy an adapter for the camera. But I might be wrong. I'm thinking about picking one up in the future, so we'll see if maybe my opinion changes once I pick one up. And of course, another reason not to pick one up is they won't work with any filters that you've got. You'll have to try and get filter adapters, which again I'm not a fan of, putting glass in front of glass, and you can have issues with vignetting and things like that. Obviously I've got a mist filter that also water seals my camera, and that won't work if I decide to use a teleconverter. I would have to then buy an adapter or buy another mist filter. So again, it's more cost on top of that and more complication to your life. And I feel like the Fujifilm X100VI is all about simplifying photography rather than complicating it. And another reason is the fact that it does slow you down. So if you don't decide that on the day you're just going to take the camera with the adapter attached, it is going to slow you down in the fact that you're going to have to take off the waterproof ring around the camera, attach the adapter, and then obviously you've got to put those bits and bobs somewhere. Obviously if you're wearing jackets and you've got rucksacks, that's absolutely fine, but if you're going for a lighter load or you're going for a walk in the city, again it's one other lens essentially to carry with you. You've got to put it somewhere, and then you've got to put those adapters somewhere and keep them safe so you don't always lose them. Few considerations why that is why I don't believe it's the best option, especially if you're trying to be more cost conscious. cost conscious. And the best option, in my opinion, is using the crop mode within the camera. Why do I think this feature is underrated within the camera? I think people dismiss it because they think about it more is the fact you're just zooming in camera, and I think within photography that's sort of shunned upon, or it's not really how you're meant to do things. You know, you should be moving with your feet, and that's how you should get the composition. You shouldn't be relying on the inbuilt zoom. But however, for me, I feel like it's an easy way to switch focal lengths without having to carry unnecessary and extra gear, especially if you've got a backpack full of extra gear already. It's another thing that you don't have to worry about carrying with you. So there are 3 different focal lengths that you can use with your Fujifilm X100VI, and they are of course the 35mm full frame equivalent, which is the standard focal length for this camera. Then you have the 50mm equivalent, which takes it down to, so it's a 1.4 crop, which then takes the sensor quality down to 20 megapixels. And then you have the 70mm equivalent, which is a 2x crop, which takes it down to 10 megapixels. I am looking at my phone here because I'd never remember that. So again, you've got some great options there, and I've got some examples that I'll show you up on the screen now. I really think it's something that people don't use, and the fact that you can quite simply, on your camera, it's default that you just use the focus ring, or at least that's how I've got it set up. So I use the focus ring because I don't shoot manual. To change it makes it really quick and simple. And even whilst I've been doing this video to demonstrate how it works, I found myself using it more and found how useful it's been. Now, of course, if you are shooting in RAW, you do retain the full quality, so you can always go back and revert to that if necessary. So again, it's a bit of a safeguard. But if you're someone like me that maybe takes the JPEGs, does a bit of altering to them, has the RAW as a backup just in case, and then post to social media, you've got that backup, so you've got that save file if you ever want to revert to getting that 35mm equivalent viewpoint back, but you can quickly post to social media if needed. So, as you can probably tell, we are not in a random Airbnb in the Peak District. We are back in the office. Simple reason for the fact we're back in the office is after getting back from the walk, we'd done 10k and then 18k the other day, so nearly about 30 kilometers of walking in total. And for me and my girlfriend, it's not something we do too often or we're too good at just yet, so we were both quite tired. And after I'd whacked the fire on, I didn't really feel like firing the camera back up to do some more recording. However, we are now back in the office. But a couple of days later, I reviewed some of the photos as well, which I think will help with this next portion of the video. But with that said, I want to get into my next point, which is addressing some of the common misconceptions I feel like I come across when I'm talking to photographers or even people that don't do photography professionally. I think when we're talking about using a crop or an inbuilt crop, we automatically think about when we're using our smartphones and you're zooming in and how, you know, they really don't look great as soon as you start using the digital zoom factor. Or on other cameras, when I'm doing video work, I don't tend to use the digital zoom. I'll always use a zoom lens or a different prime if needed. So to address this common misconception properly, up on screen right now, I have 2 images. One is cropped and one is not cropped. Can you tell which is which? I'm sure the pixel peepers out there might be able to tell the difference, but I sure had a hard time finding the difference between the 2. And that's due to the fact that even at the 50mm equivalent, you still do get 20 megapixels, which is more than enough for when I'm posting to Instagram or when I'm using them for examples in these videos, or when I'm printing my work, which you can see I've done in a previous video, and I have used somewhere the crop factor has been used and I cannot tell the difference. Now, I'd imagine if you were doing very large prints for exhibitions, etc., this may be more of a problem, but I think if you're in that category, you may not be using the X100VI in the first place for that. You might have a more professional camera. That might jinx a few people to not call the X100VI a professional camera, but I wouldn't consider it a professional camera, even if it has got professional qualities. And even at that 70mm equivalent, you're still getting 10 megapixels, which we have to remember is the same resolution as you were getting out of cameras just a few years ago, really. It's not too long ago that it was 10 megapixels, then 20, and now we've sort of caught up to about 40. But again, it's more than enough if you're just trying to post to social media, and it's a great feature to have in the camera, in my opinion. And of course, we have to remember, it's not like cropping in post. It allows us to get our composition, which is the most important thing. Anyone can take a picture of a scenic view, but getting the composition where you're high, low, trying to get a certain aspect of the photo in is where the skill truly lies within photography, and helps the story that you're trying to tell with each photo. And whilst, yes, you can do this in post, it's just not how I think you should work. And instead, I'd think about using the digital crop that comes with the Fujifilm X100VI. Now, maybe I want to talk about a bit of a hybrid approach. Maybe you're someone that uses the X100VI and you shoot RAW, and you might be thinking, well, this video has been fantastic, but that does not work for me. Well, a little trick that I'd like you to think about is how you could shoot with JPEG plus RAW. Obviously, we're going to use more SD card space and such, but this might be worth it for you. You could compose the shot using a JPEG file. Let's say you're using the 50mm equivalent, and then when you're going into Lightroom, Capture One, whatever it might be, you've got your RAW file there and you've got your JPEG side by side, and doing this will allow you to see what you were trying to capture in that moment, and then you can translate that to the RAW file. I don't even know if maybe there's a way to overlay the two photos, and then maybe you could zoom into one or another and really nail it that way. But this again would allow you to get that raw image with more data, with more versatility when it comes to editing the photo, but you've managed to get that composition with the JPEG. Again, might be a little tip or trick for you guys to try out. And whilst I was on the hike, I did capture some real world examples of this. So I set up the tripod. I didn't get the most scenic view in the world, but hopefully behind the camera, you'll be able to see me using the 35mm, the 50mm and the 70mm equivalent. And you can see, one, how that's activated, and two, what effect that kind of has on the image. So I'll put all the images up, and you'll be able to see them as well as the action in process. See the process in action. So that is my wrap up. That is my conclusion. After using the inbuilt teleconverter for the last 2 days, I really am quite massively impressed with how it's performed. It's definitely performed better than I expected. And I think it really is an underrated feature. It of course removes that barrier to entry in terms of needing adapters, which you can buy for the camera like we discussed, and removes the headache of trying to do anything in post. So now I want to ask you guys, do you crop your images, or would you rather use the adapters that Fujifilm sell for the camera? Please do let me know in the comments, and I'd love to get a debate going on whether I should start thinking about purchasing an adapter, or maybe I should move camera systems altogether and go for an X-T5 and just get a zoom lens. Of course, if you found this video helpful, please do like and subscribe for more Fujifilm content, and I'll see everyone in the next video.